Hi, everybody. Welcome to Breeders' Cup Focus 2020. I'm Dan Illman along with Mike Beer. And in this edition of Breeders' Cup Focus, we're going to take a look at some of the main contenders for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. Let's take a peek at the top 10 as ranked in preliminary morning line order by DRF's Brad Free. Imprimis 3-1 on the morning line. Got Stormy the filly. Boy, is she versatile and has had a wonderful career. She is at 4-1. Leinster, the son of Majestic Warrior, so consistent at 5-1. And as you see from the top 3 to 5 horses on this list, Mike, big Beyer speed figures, very consistent horses.
Yeah, I mean, listen, these turf sprinters, they always feel like they're very well-matched group, Dan. This year, it just so happens a lot of very fast races so far for these kinds of horses. So it'll be a very interesting race when they all, meet up on Breeders' Cup Day, because it feels like this is always a race that feels like it's wide open, and this year is no different.
And Imprimis is no stranger to fast races. His career best was a 110 Beyer that he earned last year. His most recent start, this race at Kentucky Downs, the Grade 3 Turf Sprint, he earned a 102 Beyer, his sixth triple-digit Beyer speed figure of his career. And he handled very soft going. He's the number 9, beginning his run on the outside right now, and he grinds down a pretty solid field. It's nice to know that he can win on any kind of footing.
True enough, and this is a very game victory for this horse. So, by the way, this is a little bit of a longer race for him too down at Kentucky Downs. Those races play longer than a typical turf sprint does, and this horse probably a little bit better going shorter than that, Dan. Also a nice little bit of redemption for this horse after being disqualified up at Saratoga one start prior.
And he's also relatively fresh coming into this Breeders' Cup. That was only his second race of the year. Remember, after he finished 6th in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, he was off for a long time. He has shown no rust off the layoff, and he is one of the major contenders for the Turf Sprint. As for Got Stormy, what can you say? She's won 10 times in her brilliant career, almost $2 million in earnings. And the big question was, could she cut all the way back to 5.5? Yes, she won at 6.5, 2 starts back at Kentucky Downs. But as you so astutely said, those 6.5 races, they play longer, and Got Stormy probably like that. Well, she can sprint. Let's watch the Franklin County, the Buffalo Trace Franklin County at Keeneland. She has a lot of work to do. She's in the pink silks with the white stripe on her face, and she is just going to fly home and just get her nose down in the shadow of the wire. Tyler Gaffalione, I guess, timed this just right. Listen, she's been nothing but good since she's turned back in distance. I think we were pretty much writing her obituary earlier this year saying maybe she wasn't as good as she was in 2019. Mark Casse might have found the whole card. Turn her back.
Yeah, it's certainly, so far, he's looking a little bit like a genius, Dan. She's run really well in her last 2 starts, in particular that last one. I mean, you don't typically see her leaving herself that much work to do in the stretch. She had a long way to come, and she came with a very fast finish in there. I guess she can sprint, and we already know that she can beat the boys.
Rusty Arnold has a history of training some nice turf sprinters, and the latest in a long line is Leinster, and perhaps most importantly, Leinster really likes Keeneland. He won the Shakertown, he won the Woodford this year, sweeping the 2 major turf sprint races at Keeneland. Let's watch the Woodford. I love this horse's tactical speed. I mean, Got Stormy and Imprimis, they have tactical speed. Got Stormy maybe sort of a closing sprinter now, going 5.5. But Leinster can adapt to any kind of pace situation. He sat right off the leader here. He's going to take the lead, and he wins this race without much trouble. That's a nice horse, Extravagant Kid running second, but Leinster really didn't have any sort of issues with this field.
No, he didn't, and that was a pretty solid field of turf sprinters there. And you're right, Dan. He won that race relatively easily. He also beat a good field back in July over that same Keeneland turf course when he ran a 101 Beyer in the Shakertown. He really likes the Keeneland turf course, especially sprinting, 3 for 3 sprinting on that turf course. I don't know. There's just a lot to like about this horse who's going to get a good trip, or tends to get good trips in his races anyway. You never know what's going to happen in a big field on Breeders' Cup Day, but he tends to get good trips, and he's got plenty of fast races.
Glass Slipper is number 4 on Brad's list. It's 6-1 on his very preliminary morning line, comes in from Europe. And a lot of times we say Europeans, any of them on turf, you must respect in the Breeders' Cup. I think perhaps less so in the turf sprints. I don't think their turf sprinters are as good as ours. This one is pretty good. He just missed in the Prix de la Baie, an important Group 1 in France. And if the ground is very soft, you can upgrade this filly's chances.
Yeah, that's true too. You're right, though, that it doesn't feel like the Europeans hold a huge advantage over our sprinters anyway. But you're also correct. This filly has some very strong form on the way into the Breeders' Cup.
Diamond Oops is likely to be pre-entered in both the turf sprint and the sprint. He would fit in either one of those races. As we look at the second half of this list, Alexandra is one of the more fascinating names here. We know this mare can step. She's a true one-run closer. She won the Grade 1 Jaipur when she got an electric pace to attack, and then she went to the sidelines, and that's really the big question. Can she win this tough race off a long layoff, coming from perhaps last?
Yeah, I mean, I would be less concerned about the layoff and perhaps more concerned about whether or not she could get the right trip over a short sprint distance, Dan, because she is going to be at the back of the field early. She's a big, giant mare. So she's not really one of those horses that you can, sort of try and weave your way through traffic. You got to keep her clear. You cannot get her stopped. But if you can work out the right trip for her, she will fly late in this race.
Wildman Jack broke the 6-furlong track record at Maidan in their turf sprint, going 7 and change, then came right back, broke the 5.5-furlong track record at Santa Anita in winning the Daytona. I think the major concern is the one time he stunk up the joint, it was at Keeneland.
Yeah, he didn't run well that day. You're right. That's a very big question mark coming back in the Breeders' Cup, because I don't know that I ever heard a really valid excuse for that performance, Dan. He didn't show any speed at all that day, and he was never involved. That's a very serious question mark.
And while Big Runur has yet to run that triple-digit Beyer speed figure, he is a very lightly raced 5-year-old that's won his last 3, is sharp, is versatile, and is not without a chance.
I respect that he's going to come into the Breeders' Cup in very sharp form. I wonder if he's the kind of horse, though, stepping up to face some, real tough competition. He is a horse who it feels like he might be at his best, sort of towards the front of the pack. And if there's a lot of pace in the race, I'd be worried about it.
But as it stands right now, a couple of weeks away from the Breeders' Cup, there's a big 3. Imprimis, Got Stormy, Leinster. And if they all show up, it will be a super showdown.